This is Leaders Elevating Leaders, bringing you the power of possibility by learning from successful leaders across Northeast Florida. We're breaking down barriers, overcoming fears, and stepping out of our comfort zones to be inspired and change our mindset from it's complicated to it's possible. I'm your host, Angela Timberlake, talent development executive, executive coach, business owner, and now the Vice President of Elevate Women with Jax USA Partnership, the Economic Development Division of the Jacksonville Chamber. And our mission is to elevate women to the highest level of leadership across Northeast Florida. When we do, we become a destination where top talent can thrive, which means our business, our economy, and our community thrive. Now, let's hear how it's possible for you. All right. Welcome to Leaders Elevating Leaders. I am Angela Timberlake, Vice President of Elevate Women, and I'm honored to be joined with Mary Jackson, Vice Admiral of the U.S. Navy, now retired and returned back to Jacksonville. So we're thrilled to have you here with us, Mary.
Hi, Angela. Thank you. It's great to be here as well.
Now, you've been all over the world and experienced so much serving our country. So thank you for your service. Now, those of us not that close to you, I'd love to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about who you are and share some of your journey.
Thank you. So as Angela said, I recently retired from the United States Navy. I served for 32 years. I was a Naval Academy graduate and am a surface warfare officer. So I spent the first half of my career on and off ships and sailed all over the world. And then the second half in base infrastructure and was very, very fortunate to command a naval base. And then also my last job in the Navy was as Navy Installations Command, responsible for all the Navy bases around the world. So I'm very happy to be here in Jacksonville. We have 2 children and my husband are just thrilled to be back in this area.
That's great. So what are your thoughts and plans now? What do you want to do now that you've come back to Jacksonville?
Well, it's an exciting transition. It's a big one, obviously, going from the military to not sure what next. I'm really looking forward to getting more involved in the community here in Jacksonville. I'd also like to fulfill some board roles, and I'm doing a little bit of consulting. So I'm really exploring at this point, but just very, very happy to have had such a wonderful career and then excited about this next chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. And your experience, your background, and your knowledge can play such a huge factor in contributing to our community. So we're thankful to have you back. So let's talk a little bit about your career, right? So we're talking about, what it takes to succeed in different areas. And obviously one of probably the most challenging for female to rise to the top will be, the armed forces. So let's talk a little bit about the qualities that make it successful for women to succeed.
I think I was very fortunate in the sense that my parents never really said, you can't do this. So they certainly instilled in me this attitude to, if you want something, it may be a lot of work, but you can, go after it and get there. So certainly that was instilled in me. I also think I have a pretty strong questioning attitude. So I'm very curious. I like to learn more. And so, that certainly contributed to being able to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, so to speak, because you just kind of ask questions and learn as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I can imagine it was not that easy, a path for you. So what are some of the blind spots or, experiences that maybe can help prepare somebody else following in your footsteps?
I think, well, first of all, I would say, I did not have, I worked hard, our teams worked hard, but I wouldn't say that I had a more challenging career than someone else, so to speak. It's all about kind of learning and listening to the environment that you're around, listening to the team and your team members. And I think that's true for blind spots too. I think there's kind of 2 aspects to look at blind spots. One is inward, right? What are your own blind spots? And certainly over the years, I've realized that have some blind spots, and I have to police myself and work beyond those. The other thing is realizing that team members are going to have blind spots, and so how can you help them work through it? So there's this ally relationship that I think you surround yourself with allies, people who can call you out, who feel that this is a trusting environment to say, you just said something, and this was how it was received, or maybe how you behaved. So you need to surround yourself with allies, but then also know that you should be someone else's ally, and help them through it. Because I think the thing with blind spots is unless that conversation is able to be had, it will continue to be a blind spot.
Yeah, very well said. And it's so important to have those relationships around you, and those trusting relationships that give you some sense of security and help you continue to grow, right? That's what it's all about. That's what true leadership is about. I love it. So you talk a little bit about allyship. So how important were mentors or sponsors for you in your career?
Really important. I was mentored by people all along, and I also always found time and continue to find time to mentor, even at this stage in my life. I think the mentorships that really thrive are those that are not necessarily founded in some sort of formal, program necessarily, but people that you search out, or they search, you out to be able to have a conversation. And then you'll find that some you may talk to only once in your life, others you may keep going back to the well because of the relationship that you've made. That mentorship is all about relationships. And I think there's also something to be said for reverse mentoring, so to speak. In other words, there are often times that I go into an opportunity to mentor someone, and the reverse happens. I walk out feeling like I just got more out of the conversation than I gave. So it really is a two-way street, and keep your eyes open and make it part of your regular routine.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what advice would you give yourself with what you know today?
Well, that's a tough question. I think maybe not be so hard on myself, and there's a certain amount of introspection that we all do anyway, but there's a point at which it can be counterproductive, and there have been times where I have dwelled on something or just been too hard on myself, and then it's harder to move forward. So that might be one thing. A big one is just slow down enough to smell the roses, and that just means besides the churn of work and whatever you're working on, being so focused on that, but to lift your eyes up and really embrace the people around you. And so I can think of some times in my career where I was just on the grindstone working so hard, and I needed to kind of take a step back and really focus on the team around me instead of just on the work.
Yeah, it is so important. Sometimes we lose sight of that because we are so mission driven. So it is important to take a pause and reflect on where you're going, why, and how.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, I know you're retired, but how did you handle the pressures? When I hear people talk about, considering the military or being part of the military, the impact that has on your family to move around so much. So how did you deal with sort of those pressures and being a leader?
Well, lots of different aspects of that question. I think one of them is certainly as you have more and more experiences, you learn how you react to stress. I think it's important to study that, so to speak. In other words, know if you become more vocal if you're stressed, or less vocal and you kind of clam up. Know whether you have physical things like do your knees knock if you get under a lot of stress. I mean, I say that halfway jokingly, but not jokingly, because I one time had my knees knock. So I think there's kind of the aspect of knowing yourself and knowing what you do under stress. And then again, I go back to kind of policing yourself. If you need to take a step back, then know when to do that. Another aspect is taking care of yourself. How do you make sure that you have reserves in the bank? You never want to get so depleted that you don't have the energy or the clarity of mind, the mindfulness to be able to keep doing what you're doing. And so you always have to keep some degree of reserves in your bank. And for everyone, that's different. For some person, it may be yoga. For another person, it may be writing in a journal, maybe going for a hard run or doing a high impact exercise. You just never know. But know what it is that will recharge you, and make sure you carve out time to do that. Because I think it's common that as employees, leaders, moms, pet owners, spouses, children of ailing parents, the person that's the last on the list is ourselves. And so you got to carve out just a tiny bit of time to take care of yourself, so that you don't get in that that high stress environment and not be able to work through it.
Yeah, very well said. Self-awareness and self-care are so important, and typically, as you said, the last thing on our list. So thanks for the reminder. So what has been your greatest reward?
The people, absolutely. The people I've been able to work with. That's what I miss the most right now. And certainly, COVID doesn't help because we're all kind of locked up. But it's definitely the people. It's watching people shine. It's helping people, when they're navigating their own path. It's being a team and tackling an objective. It's all that aspect of what I'm so thankful for, and thankfully, even though you leave the Navy, those relationships continue, and now I have a little more time to to check in with people and see how they're doing. So that's nice as well.
Yeah, and leadership. Once you realize leadership is about the people, it changes for you, right? It's not about you. It's definitely about the people that you're bringing along with you for the journey. So talk to me a little bit about that. How did you advise people and coach people to be in charge and be the CEO of their own career?
Succession planning is a big part of what we do in the military. We really groom, monitor people throughout their careers at every level. I think we have a pretty rigid performance process where we evaluate. I think it varies, the verbal feedback. I mean, we're supposed to be giving verbal feedback on a regular basis. I think that there are some people that are better at that than others. I think verbal feedback, that conversation, more than just putting it on paper. I think that conversation, and it has to be more than every 6 months. I mean, it needs to be something that's, again, part of the daily routine, but providing feedback both ways, right? So being willing to receive feedback, from your juniors, but also be able to have a conversation, down the chain to help people constructively make course corrections, and also be willing to make your own course corrections. And I think one of the things that, I think this came to me kind of later in my career, I realized is that sometimes you'll ask people for feedback and they can't give it to you. And so you need to figure out kind of ways beyond that. Go, find feedback from other people. Just know that there's some people who are not comfortable giving feedback. So you have to, look for other avenues. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is one fear that you've been able to manage or at least overcome to help you be more effective?
I think communicating is one of them, right? And in terms of, early in my career when I did Myers-Briggs, I was kind of low-level introvert. And over the years, I've watched that, my Myers-Briggs test kind of move into the extrovert area, because I've learned how to communicate on a, it's not a vulnerable place for me anymore, so to speak. And so, standing up in terms of in front of large crowds is not bothersome. Having that conversation, I think, is something that I overcame early. I also think the other piece is just worrying about being vulnerable, right? And so learning how to not worry about that, as long as you are taking the high road, and being the best person and respectful of everyone around you. um, don't worry about being vulnerable. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that's so important, right? As long as you stay true to your values, right? You can put some of that fear aside.
Right.
I like it. I like it. All right. So, the conversations that we're having now it's so important to be surrounded by diversity of thought, right? And so talk to us a little bit about your experience with diversity, and what people can be doing now to embrace it more.
Yeah. So as someone who's been looked at as diverse in the environment I grew up on, I will tell you that most people that are either gender or race diverse first of all, don't want to be seen that way, right? They want to be seen as a skilled leader who's coming to the table and wants to contribute just as much as everyone else. I will tell you that I think that the conversations recently, over last summer, have really caused us all to think about how often we listen, and and questions that we ask, that I think might not have been on the forefront in previous years. And I think that's really important, is being willing to listen to where other people are coming from, and then you'll get the diversity of thought. In terms of selections, right? Selecting people for the next job. It would be nice if those were, race and gender blind, that the decisions are made on the skill set. I think that that these days there's so much that's not said, right? So if you had two exactly, and you never get this, but two exactly qualified skill set people, and one is of one gender and one's of another, or one is of one race and one is of another, I think that these days the person making the selection should think a little harder, or maybe ask some additional questions to further kind of needle out the diversity of thought between those candidates, and that you may find that there is diversity there that they didn't see in the first place. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's about getting to the contributions that person can provide and the value that they bring, despite their personal appearance, right? And so it's asking those right questions and trying to find the right fit. So I love that advice. All right, so now let's take the pressure off a little bit, and we'll go for a little fun. So I'm going to ask you some personal questions so we get to know Mary a little bit more. So what job, other than the one you most recently retired from, what job did you enjoy the most?
I don't think that's a fair question either, because I think every job, I loved every job, but for different reasons, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As a junior officer in the Navy, you just get so many new experiences. And when you're at sea and you're driving the ship, that's a lot of fun. And so you're kind of out there, you're not driving a desk, you're driving a ship, and you're on the water, and that was fabulous. Again, every job I had, the neat thing is what the Navy gave me also was diversity in jobs. The different things that I did was fun in and of itself. And so I'm very thankful for that. I did not have kind of the same job over and over again. And that was fabulous.
Yeah, good. Okay. What job did you like the least?
I'm just gonna flip it right back the other way around. But there were some struggles in each one of them, and that's another thing I would say. and maybe goes back to one of your earlier questions about kind of attributes that lead to success, is the ability to pick yourself up and go back at it, right? And don't get devastated by something that happens. I mean, in general, you know, unless it's something really catastrophic, and then you're talking about, you know, life. I think in general, you know, you can dust yourself up and off and get back at it. And so I think that's a really strong attribute. So when you say which one did I like the least? Well, all of them had probably, you know, times that were more challenging. You just kind of keep going at it.
Yeah. Okay. What profession other than yours would you like to do if you had a choice?
Oh, you know, when you're little, you always have these thoughts of what you might be. I mean, at one time I wanted to be a ballerina. At one time I wanted to be an Olympic swimmer, a veterinarian. My father was a geologist, so I have an affinity for rocks in the desert. So those are things that have gone through my mind. I do enjoy animals a lot, and so it would be fun to you know, spend time as a veterinarian around animals.
Yeah. What profession is absolutely not for you?
Well, I don't think I could be a doctor or a surgeon.
Yeah.
There's no way. That's just probably not in my DNA.
Yeah, that's a whole special breed for sure. What's your favorite word or phrase?
Ownership, I think. You know, certainly in the work environment, and even with, you know, with the family and with the kids, I think ownership is understanding ownership, and how owning yourself and your actions is so important.
Yeah. What word makes you cringe when you hear it? You're just like, no.
So it's funny, if you asked people in the Navy, they'd probably know the answer, because it's a very Navy term. You know, and I'll just give you a little background. We get taught early in our careers how to communicate, especially when you're communicating over the radio. And there's certain terms that are appropriate that, you know, you learn. And so you say Roger, right? So if you get an order or something, and you're acknowledging it, you would say Roger. But people have gotten in the habit of saying Roger that. And so that drives me crazy when people say Roger that, because I also, as a high school student, learned that you never end anything with a preposition. So that also drove me crazy. So anytime someone says Roger that, I think it's not proper.
That's funny. All right. What's your favorite thing to do to escape?
Well, I love to spend time with the family, but that's not always escape. I guess real escape is paddleboarding, being outside. I like to swim my laps. I do enjoy. That's one of the reasons we're back in Jacksonville. I enjoy the weather.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for that.
Yeah.
All right. What's your least favorite thing to get roped into? Like if somebody says, "Hey, Mary, can you do this?" You're like, "Oh, I don't want to say yes."
You know, the problem is I say yes to a lot of stuff.
We do, don't we?
And I guess I don't get roped into much that I don't want to do, if that makes sense. I had a hard time thinking, what do I not want to do? There's not really anything that, I don't know. I couldn't come up with an answer. I can't come up with an answer on this one.
Good
Sorry.
for you. Maybe that's because you say no to the things that you don't want to do. So good for you. All right. Where would we find you in town if you had your choice to spend just a few hours just to focus on you? What would you be doing?
I might get out on the water and go paddleboarding. I think I've tested out most of the coffee shops in town.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that. You know, going to the you know, I'm a big believer in buy local. So, you know, going into seeing the small shops and seeing how they're doing, especially with COVID, you know, I'm very sympathetic for, you know, what this has given, the stress it's given them. So, you know, that's fun too, but just, again, mostly being outside.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Mary. Thank you for sharing your story and your journey with us. What would be one final piece of advice that you'd like to share with the next Mary who might be following in your footsteps?
Just stay at it, stay focused, and be comfortable being uncomfortable, and talk to a lot of people so that you have lots of information and you can make educated decisions about the path that you're on.
Well said. Well, again, thank you for your service. Thank you for coming back and making Jacksonville your home. We're thrilled to have you here. I see you doing amazing things in our community. So thank you for our viewers. Thank you for watching Leaders Elevating Leaders. We believe you've seen the power of possibility today. So until next time, be bright and make it possible. Thank you.